Hey guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your number one source for all things films and movies. And with the Star Wars sequel trilogy finally wrapping up, there's definitely a lot of different opinions out there as to how the sequel trilogy ended up. But more recently, we've seen actor John Boyega talk a bit more candidly about his character and what his expectations were when he joined up for the movie. Because this essentially was the biggest movie he had ever been involved with in his career thus far, and while he had been a really good actor beforehand, this was a really big undertaking for his career to jump into a franchise that is so large as that of Star Wars. So recently, when he's been talking about some of the things he hasn't liked about some of the Star Wars movies that he's been in himself, we actually really appreciate the honesty that he's shared, where he kind of talked blatantly about the issues he felt personally with his character and with him as an actor when he was brought on board to play the role. But before we jump into this, if you're a huge fan of comic books or the DC universe, every single Thursday is DC Thursday here at this channel, and over on our community page, we posted a very challenging question based off of DC trivia. Now, if you guys want to participate in this, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, but every single Thursday we ask a challenging question on DC trivia, and if you answer the question correctly, you have a chance of having your comment featured in one of our videos in the future. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you guys are subscribed and check back on Thursdays for everything DC related, and we even do the same thing every single Monday with our Marvel Monday series as well. Okay, let's get back into it. If you've been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe or just the actors in the MCU, and real quick, we wanted to give a huge shout out to our Instagram page. If you guys didn't know, we just passed over 8,000 followers over on Instagram, so we'd really appreciate if you guys headed over to our Instagram, scroll through some of our posts, maybe hit the like button and followed us over there. We do a lot of really interesting content if you love comic books, the MCU, DCEU, whatever it is. If you just like movies, it's a really cool page. We've been working really hard on it, and it would mean the world to us if you went over and checked it out as well. Now, John Boyega, in his most recent interview, cites a lot of things as to why he feels like the second and third installments of the sequel trilogy weren't nearly as well received as The Force Awakens when it released. And he brings up a lot of good points across the board, but then he kind of became introspective in his interview and talked a bit more about personally what it seemed like from his perspective. Now, when we first saw that trailer drop for The Force Awakens, everybody was so hyped about the movie. And we can even see John Boyega's original reaction to him appearing in the trailer and watching the trailer for the first time, and it's just so exciting to see. You can see not only how excited he is for finally getting to join a franchise as big as Star Wars and finally getting to be this major character, which we see quite a bit of in the trailer. And this really will contrast a lot of the way that John Boyega feels about the Star Wars universe now, all of these years later.
They're real.
So even from looking at that trailer, you definitely can see that there was a lot of attention paid to Finn's character even before the movie released. And then when we actually saw the movie The Force Awakens release, not only do we get an interesting story involving Rey and Poe Dameron, but we get to see Finn, this really unique character who defects as a stormtrooper and then literally duels against Kylo Ren with a lightsaber at the end of the movie. A very, very unique character arc, something we'd never seen in Star Wars before. We get to see him completely get sidelined in the second and third movies in the sequel trilogy, where his role obviously wasn't nearly as important. So in his more recent interviews where he talks about his frustrations, he talks about how not only was it frustrating to feel like he was being involved in this movie as this very important character that can tell a new story, he also talked a little bit about how it was very important to him that there was a person of color jumping into a unique role that was going to be kind of featured as one of the main heroes of the Star Wars universe, and to have the character sidelined along with other characters that were introduced midway and towards the end of the trilogy, he just felt somewhat slighted that maybe the movies weren't handled the way or as delicately as he had hoped or he had initially imagined when The Force Awakens had initially came out. I mean, early on when promoting The Force Awakens, you can see so much of John Boyega's charisma around playing this character and how excited he was to be involved in Star Wars, like when he was at an interview playing around with a lightsaber.
Looking back, what have kind of been the standout bits?
I think just the whole experience, really. Filming has been such an amazing thing. The Star Wars movie is just crazy, but working with someone like J.J. Abrams is a cherry on the cake for sure.
I cried earlier.
Did you?
Yeah.
You didn't cry with me in the...
I know.
Carrie nicked it and gave it to me. Is this what they look like on set?
Pretty much, yeah.
But even more so, just before the release of The Force Awakens, there was an exclusive interview where John Boyega talks about how substantial this was for him to get to be in this franchise and how seriously a lot of the fans take the franchise, and he felt like it was something very special he was about to get involved in. And it is a little disappointing to see that with so much excitement that he has, and you can see in these videos, that it really didn't live up to it when he looks back at the Star Wars trilogy after the filming completed.
Yeah. What is it about Star Wars, before you're involved in it, that makes you love it the way Star Wars fans do?
I always was sensitive to imagination, and I was always sensitive to stories that weren't about my circumstance, but they still had a relatable sense of humanity in it, and Star Wars for me represented that.
Now, he has been very vocal in the Star Wars community for quite some time, and even at some panels he's talked about how he's kind of been disappointed that his character really didn't get the same treatment that a character such as Rey or Kylo Ren got in the second and third movies, and he kind of just got put in these random plot lines for the sake of not really knowing what to do with their character. And he does feel like they didn't play up a lot of his character being force sensitive and other things that were very obviously there from the beginning that just never really got to be fleshed out. You can see him kind of talk about it lightheartedly right here.
The character that gives him clarity as to what side he should fight with and fight on, and I think that's something that was very, very important. I just wanted to play him slightly more stronger in this. I can't lie, I don't like the way they was advertising me with the blue lightsaber, and then all of a sudden, man, it just, you know, transferred, and I was just like, that on the snow. Do you know what I mean?
Now, in that interview we talked about earlier, he does go on to say that it really started to become problematic with The Last Jedi, and it kind of was Disney's move to try to patch things up by getting J.J. Abrams to come back, but at that point a lot of the damage was kind of done and J.J. Abrams had to piece together things, so it just seemed like maybe there was more of this upset situation involving The Last Jedi that kind of maybe turned the perspective a little bit. We don't want to speculate too much, we just want to go off of what he said, but it does seem like a really frustrating thing to face as an actor. Now, we've seen various tweets from John Boyega and little video clips where he might throw a little joke here and there, or a little sting at one of the Star Wars movies just because he feels like he's entitled to as a Star Wars fan, and that's fair enough. Like in this video, just mentioning the fact that a stormtrooper wouldn't know that they have jetpacks even though he was a stormtrooper once upon a time.
He forgot.
But what if that was the first time they used them?
They're using them since the Clone Wars.
But still, even despite some of the frustrations he may had faced, he did do a really good job at keeping things very upbeat and making the best of a lot of the moments for the other movies he was in. For instance, when he was doing the press tour for the third movie, he just kind of jumped in and had a good time with it and just tried to do the best that he could do. He had a good time doing this interview with himself.
I get overwhelmed by the amount of perfection. If you could be anyone else in the world, who would it be and why? I was asking myself that the other day. So funny, I couldn't find anyone else. Just through looking at other people's lives, I'm like, why would I want to be anyone else?
Who is the best interviewer you've ever spoken to?
Subconsciously, when I'm talking to myself, the last person that interviewed me was myself.
But after, of course, hearing the interview with the more recent looks and talks and retrospectives, we do kind of wish we would have gotten to see more of Finn throughout the trilogy and more fleshed out and more character-driven moments that were important rather than kind of sidestepping him in favor of focusing on other characters. It would have been okay if they sent Finn off on his own little story arc separately from the other characters, but if his character can't grow in that time and it just seems like a little side story for the sake of having the story, it doesn't really make it feel like a substantial character in a way that The Force Awakens did. So anyways, we wanted to turn around to you guys. What do you guys think of all of this kind of controversy or debate about the sequel trilogy? There's been talks for a while that Disney has plans to revisit it in one way or another, try to patch things up and retcon a few things and still incorporate some of the ideas from the sequel trilogy into this patch up. We really don't know how that would work out. But whatever it is, let us know what your opinions are, what you think Disney should have done differently in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video.
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hi.
See you guys.
Know anybody?